Hello, my name is Michelle, and for this project, I chose second grade math, measurement, and geometry. The topic is line of symmetry, which correlates with Virginia Standard 2.12, which states the student will A, draw a line of symmetry in a figure, and B, identify and create figures with at least one line of symmetry. And for the note-taking device for this project, I will have students create their own graphic organizers, and I will provide them with the materials that they will need. The first page will be the cover, which is just a simple symmetrical picture that I found off Google. And then there will be three different note-taking layouts for the students, which they'll get all three, but they have a choice of which one they would like to put notes on. One of them is the one with the lines. It asks for the key concepts and details. That's one layout that they can choose to take notes on. The second page is the actual graphic organizer that looks like a concept map for those students who like illustrations that might help them understand key details better. And the third page that they can choose is just a basic 3-column, no lines, no frills, note taking. And they don't have to take notes on all three, but they can if they want. So we'll have them put those together. The three books that I've chosen to integrate into the lesson are 3 picture books that are informational text. They're nonfiction. They all teach the basics of lines of symmetry, the vertical and horizontal. And one of the books that I've chosen is Seeing Symmetry by Lorene Leedy. And I chose this picture book because of the illustrations. They're bold, they're clear, and she uses both man-made and nature-made objects to show the lines of symmetry. The next book that I chose is Symmetry, My Path to Math 7 by Lynn Pepys. And I like this book because it uses everyday household items as illustrations. It uses like curtains to do lines of symmetry. And not only that, I do like how the essential vocabulary in this book is bold in that there is a glossary and an index in the back that will define key terms. Next book that I got is Symmetry in Nature by Allison Valentine. Now this book I've chosen because I like the photographs. They're true photos of everything in nature. They do show the basic vertical and horizontal lines. And this one, it uses the word congruency, which is one of my essential vocabulary terms that we use in the lesson plan. So this one's a little bit more detailed, and I thought it was appropriate. Now, into the lesson plan, of course, we'll have a whole class discussion, we'll have group discussion and independent work. I've labeled out my resources, the materials that are going to be used for the activities, the technology, the computer programs, the websites I'm going to be using, and I have my state standard from Virginia, the 2.12. I have the national standard. Now my objectives that I have down are measurable objectives. So what I will have, the students will be working on these independently. And the very first one, this will be done in class. This is a picture, and I'll ask students to look at the 10 pictures on here. And I want them to indicate whether each picture has a line of symmetry or if it does not. And it can have vertical symmetry, horizontal symmetry. As long as it has symmetry, then it's going to be yes. If it has no symmetry, then they are to circle no. And for this worksheet, I expect to get at least 8 out of 10 of these correct, so that way I'll know the students have met the objective. And the next worksheet that I have is what they're going to take home. This is their homework, and it's a worksheet called Where is My Other Half? And what the students will do is they will take this home, and what they're going to do is they're going to actually draw the other half of the ladybug. and it's going to be either symmetrical, congruent, identical, and it's got to be at least close to 100% accuracy, so that way I know they've met that objective. Okay. Then the language supports that I plan on using are create, determine, demonstrate. In language supports, guided practice, modeling, scaffolds, visual representations, and the essential vocabulary for this lesson will be line of symmetry, congruent, transformation, and geometry. Then for the actual hook, the lesson set, what I will do is I'm going to hold up a picture of a smiley face, and I will have the students describe the smiley face for me. And what I'm looking for is here circle, round, anything that has to deal with a shape. So that way I can tell them that today we will be working with a branch of math that deals with shapes. And that branch of math is called geometry. Then I'll ask the students what they see when I fold the smiley face in half with only half of the face showing. I'll ask the students, would you say that the left side of the smiley face looks identical to the right side of the smiley face? And I'm hoping to hear the word yes, and then I will present the word that is the vocabulary term congruent to them. Then I have a quick little activity. I will have a volunteer, one of the students come up, and I will have a mirror, and I will have them place the mirror right on the line of symmetry on the face. And then I'll have students come up one by one, and I will ask, what do you see when you look at the mirror and the smiley face, the half? And I'm hoping that they'll say, the mirror makes the other half of the smiley face. And that way I can write their descriptions down, and I can assess whether they have prior knowledge about reflection, symmetry, circles, shapes. This will help me determine whether I can move on. And then I will tell them that there are examples of symmetry everywhere, that by the end of this lesson, they will discover examples of a symmetry and even create their own symmetry figures. And that is the example of the hook. Now, actually, for the direct instruction, I do have a PowerPoint presentation that's already been made up by Janine Breen, and it consists of 9 slides. And the first slide basically defines congruency, tells you what the line of symmetry is, how to identify it. The second slide talks about symmetry and shapes, like it gives an illustration of the smiley face, the shape, the circles, and then a square. And then I'll introduce the parallelogram, which I will actually have a cutout of the parallelogram, and I will have a student come up and try to fold it several times to show that it is not congruent. And then I'll move on to the next slide, and that one's going to be symmetry in letters. And what I'll actually do is I'll go up on the whiteboard and I will put like the letter A, and then show with the symmetry line how alphabet letters are also congruent, also have symmetry. And then I have a slide, symmetry in nature, and it shows the different leaves, the different things in nature that has symmetry. And during that time, I will pass out I will have an example of a leaf, an example of a nautilus shell, and I will pass it around to the classroom, let them touch it, let them feel it, let them try to do symmetry, so they'll have a hands-on. And then the next slide has more symmetry in nature. It has like your snowflakes and your shell and your leaves. And then the next slide is symmetry in stop signs, signs around town that they see every day. And that will be all for the direct instruction. And then going on into the guided activity, the first activity that I have that the students will do is I'll have a butterfly. The cutout of the butterfly already. I'll have the students paint one half of the butterfly, any color they want, any design they want. Then when they're done with this half, we'll have them fold the page in half, press together, and when they open it, it should show a congruent side, almost identical. And I'll discuss that with the students once they're finished, and I will ask questions about the butterfly, just checking their comprehension, making sure that they're where they need to be. And then we will move on from the guided activity. And I have another one where they will actually pair up in twos. And I have a worksheet. And on this worksheet, it has objects, typically what you would find in a classroom. And these objects I will already have around the classroom, and I'll have them work in twos. They will go around and they will look at each, like the star, and they will try to determine if it has a line of symmetry. If it does, they'll circle yes. If it doesn't, then no. And if there's more time, I'll add some more illustrations down here for them to work together on. And that will conclude that activity. And then, of course, for the independent work will be the two worksheets that they'll do in class and the one that they'll do at home. And then for closure, I will have the students come sit on their property squares, and then we will have a group discussion. I will ask the question, and let's say when a figure has symmetry, its right half and its left half are, I'm looking for identical, the same, congruent. And another question may be, what do we call the fold that divides a shape into two identical parts? Of course, I'm looking for line of symmetry. And then, of course, the final question would be, where can we find examples of symmetry? And I'm hoping they'll say everywhere. And then for differentiation, since a lot of the same supports goes towards different preferences, the focus on the visually impaired, I would definitely have worksheets that are in bigger font and have them sitting up closer in the classroom. For the hearing impaired, of course, I'll have more visuals, front row seating, and hard copy of the PowerPoint presentation. For the ELL students, now those two of the books that I have chosen, they do have PDF files in Spanish of the same book. I would use a lot of the Google Translator, trying to put the English into whatever language the worksheets where they could understand it. The below average students and the ELL, of course, I want to put them in small groups where they can work together. And for the challenging the above students, now there's an activity I will have them, or the students that even they finish earlier, I'll have them go on Microsoft, have them look at Google pictures and pick ones with different lines of symmetry, either one line of symmetry, two lines of symmetry, print them off, show me the dotted lines on there, and that would facilitate for that. And I may also use that as a extension activity, but I do have a Saxon math game that I would like them to play. It's where they can take the shapes and actually manipulate them and do the lines of symmetry themselves. Now for the pre-assessment, it would be in the introduction when I'm asking them about the smiley face, trying to figure out shapes, if they understand circle shapes, reflection. The formative assessment would be observation, especially when they're doing their group collaboration, when they're walking around the classroom, listening, the questions that I'm asking. The summative, of course, is the two worksheets, the ones that they take home, the one that they'll do in class. And the big idea of the lesson is today I will identify and create figures with at least one line of symmetry so that I can explain that some figures have more than one line of symmetry. I know you've got it when you can draw a line of symmetry in a figure creating the congruent sides with 100% accuracy. Now the integrated activities that's not part of the lesson plan but still deals with lines of symmetry for second grade. the science integration activity would correlate with Virginia's standard life processes 2.4, which states the student will investigate and understand that plants and animals undergo a series of orderly changes as they mature and grow. And the key concept is on plants' life cycle. What I'll do here is I will actually have an activity where I will bring in different vegetables and fruits, and what we'll do is we'll actually dissect the vegetable and the fruits, and we will study the two congruent sides, and I will have them write in their science journals what they're seeing, their observations. And I will have such vegetables as I'll have a cauliflower that we will dissect in half. Then we'll have an apple. And what we'll do with the apple is we're going to cut the apple both horizontally and vertically. And I'll have them study that and write in their science journals. And another would be a cabbage. We'll look at the spiral lines of symmetry in the cabbage. And then we actually have a cactus fruit. And what I will do with a cactus fruit, since there's really only one line of symmetry when you do it up and down, so I'll have a mirror, and we'll have the students look at both sides through the mirror like we did the smiley face. And I'll have them record all their observations in their science journal. And when we get back, I would have them write 2 or 3 sentences in their journal describing symmetry, what all they observed, was there one line, was there 2 lines, and stuff like that. Now for the social studies integration, I used Virginia State Standard 2.6 Geography, which the student will develop map skills by using globes and maps of the world in the United States to locate the equator, the prime meridian, and the 4 hemispheres. And my thinking on this one was I thought of a mandala and how some cultures think of it as the center of the universe, and it's kind of shaped like the globe. And if you look at the line of symmetry, do it like right down the middle, it kind of looks like the equator. Now this, I'll be honest, I really was not sure about this activity because it may be too advanced for 2nd graders and it may not really make a lot of sense. But I was going to have them use graph paper and actually use a compass and make the mandala and then actually do it's a long activity. And as I'm looking at this now, it might have been easier if I would have just taken like the American flag, did symbols that represented history, the social studies, and the symmetry rather than doing a mandala. That's actually I'm just basing it on culture, the shape, and I'm looking at the equator, and that really may be too advanced. For the tiered math activity for the line of symmetry, what I would do for those students that are below grade level, I would do like a stamp impression. I would bring real leaves to class, maple leaves because they're easier to see the symmetry. And what I'd have them do is paint the back of the leaf. And then actually on a piece of paper, I would have them stamp the leaf on it and then wait for it to dry. And then I'd have them cut the line of symmetry and then have them glue 1/2 of the leaf on a piece of white paper and then have them bring the other half where they can see that the full leaf. And then when you take it away, they can see that this is identical to the left side. And that way just kind of keep back and forth where they'll see the congruency between the 2 leaves from the halves. Actually, I have a picture. You can see there. It's cut down the middle, and the little boy, he's actually taking the side away, and then he's bringing it back. He's learning congruency and identical, and that's what I would do for those that are on the lower grade levels. For those students who are above grade level, for this activity, they'll be working in groups of 2. They will be manipulating pattern blocks to create a symmetrical pattern to answer a word problem. And for this activity, it also integrates money concepts, which they will have known from a previous lesson. In this activity, students are given more than enough pattern blocks for the required problem. On the smart board, project the word problem. Students must create a symmetrical design that has a value of $4. They are given the information that the small green triangle is worth 10 cents. Students must then find the value of the other pattern blocks because they are proportional to the green block. And as this student here has worked the problem, we see that the student found out what 2 of everything cost, then continued to add on from there. This student is doing either addition or multiplication in his or her head when keeping a running total on the left side. The student does not need to add 30 cents twice. The student is able to see that they added 2 of the trapezoids and add 60 cents to the total. So using money concepts, we can tell from their math here on the side, which we're assuming that this student has used either addition or multiplication, and they're able to find out how much the other patterns are worth. So it's a pattern, symmetry pattern for a word problem. For the 3 assessments that I've chosen, what the main initial thing that I'm looking for is I'm wanting to see how much, by observing how students respond, whether I need to do a one-on-one interview with an individual student or with a group of students, if I need to do a mini lesson with a small group, or if I need to redo the whole lesson to the whole class. So that's the objective of the assessments. That's what the final diagnosis will be. And the 3 that I've chosen, the first formative is a participation card. And that's where the students have 3 cards. One says I agree, one says I disagree, or one says I do not know how to answer. So for the line of symmetry, what I would ask the students is, do you agree, disagree, or not know how to answer to this statement? When a figure's right half and left half are identical, the figure is said to have symmetry. And then I'll have the students hold up the card whether they agree, disagree, or do not know how to respond. And at that time, I will look and I will take anecdotal notes and I will listen to responses and see what students that I may have to work with in small groups, or if I need to redo the whole lesson. That's one formative assessment. Another one is the dipsticks. And what I would have the students do there, and these are all closing assessments at the end of the lesson. Each student would write a letter to a friend overseas explaining the concept line of symmetry. The students will free write for 2 minutes, and I will walk around the room and I will skim the letters as they're writing for the lesson objective content. I'm looking for objective content. And I have a checklist that I'll mark as each student as I skim them. And then, of course, when students are doing another activity for another, since this is elementary, when they're doing another activity for another subject, I will look over the letters formally. I will look over them, looking for content, giving feedback, knowing whether I need to redo the lesson again or just one-on-one with certain students. So that's one called the dipstick. And the summative, for the summative assessment, there is actually a website called quiz.z.com, and they actually have a quiz. It's 17 questions and it's already set up. It's an interactive quiz, and they show illustrations of stars, of what we've all been learning, the squares, and they go in and they tell how many lines of symmetry each one has. or if they have symmetry at all. There's 17 questions and it's multiple choice. They look at the illustration and they click on, like if it has 2 lines, they'll click A, B, or C or D. And for those students that are on an IEP and they don't IEP or a 504 plan, they don't have to actually answer all 17. I'm looking for at least 12 correct answers. In that part, they do this, they submit it, it gets graded. It gives them feedback on the answers that they got incorrect. It tells them, it shows an example. This is what it was looking for the correct answer. Now that would just be part of the summative quiz, with just that part. And then I would also have an essay up on the board, and I would have students in their journals or piece of paper, I'd have them answer this prompt. How many objects in nature can you list that are congruent? And how many lines of symmetry does the object contain? And first I would have them define congruency and then list at least 4 or 5 objects in nature and label how many lines of symmetry they have. And then I would have them choose one of those objects and actually draw the object and then do the marks, the symmetry marks on there. Just one of the objects. And they'd have to have it correctly placed on the drawn figure. And so for that assessment, the students must score at least 70% on the online quiz and 80% on the essay question. That way I can kind of get a feel of where the students' comprehension is going and whether I need to do a one-on-one again, or if I need to do a small group mini lesson or redo the whole lesson. Thank you.